Hello, and welcome once again to the Raging Introvert. Today we've got a CNN politics article, not opinion, at least it doesn't say so anywhere. It doesn't say so in the URL at the top. It's called Why Republicans Are Calling It Quits, which should be interesting. CNN is a mainstream media, which means left-leaning news source. So right away, my spidey senses were tingling that this would be ripe ground to check out for misdirection and fake news, I guess you could say. Because they have an agenda, they have an angle they want to present, and they're not Republicans, so it's strange to think that you would come to them to find out what Republicans are thinking or why they're doing certain actions. First thing, let's see. I'm not going to bother looking up Lauren Fox. It's not as important since it's not an opinion piece on who she is or where she's from. But it is important to note, I think, this article says it was updated. And in fact, I opened this window a while ago. If I opened it again, just double check, and it said it was updated 29 minutes later. However, scrolling through the article, top, bottom, everywhere, it doesn't actually say what was changed or what was updated from the original article, which is disappointing. Maybe it was a minor typo, maybe it was something more substantive. I think it's important that if you do make edits and adjustments, you put a note somewhere. Maybe not show each individual one, but at least a summary at the bottom saying typos, grammar, or changed a quote by so-and-so. They didn't do it. I think it's a little shady, but no surprise. So, why Republicans are calling it quits. A lot of Republicans are running away from Congress. So, right off the bat, CNN has a pretty good reputation, pretty good odds of doing that. Right out of the gate, we've got a fairly biased headline, or first line, I suppose. Running away from Congress, not leaving, and the URL is not on the screen here, but the URL just says House retirements. Ryan Costello, Jeff Flake, Eliana Rose Lehtinen. Why not House retirements or people leaving? No, it says running away from Congress. So running away makes it sound like you're afraid of something, or desperate to get away from something, or giving up on something you'd prefer to do. You'd like to do it, but you're running away from it anyway. Giving up. That's a weighted phrase already, not neutral or unbiased. Since the beginning of the 115th Congress, more than 40 Republicans have left or announced they plan to leave the House by end of the year. A handful of members have resigned. Another group is leaving to run for higher office. Okay, we got people leaving for a couple different reasons. It says more than 40 Republicans. I would like, if I were the author and I were trying to be unbiased and informative to an audience, is this abnormal? I'm assuming it is. And I'm not going to bother looking up historical norms and see how many people normally retire or leave office every term. But that would be useful information to have, and that should be included in this article. If I were writing it and trying to give my audience who's reading it an idea of what this is. As it is, 40 may be a lot, 40 may not be a lot. It's certainly given the impression that it's a lot, which may or may not be true. Still, the majority of Republicans leaving Congress this cycle are leaving politics altogether, a side effect, they say, of the political climate and President Donald Trump, a commander-in-chief who hails from their own party. So, out of these more than 40, the majority of them have said they're leaving Congress because of the climate and Donald Trump. Unlike up here, where it shows a link to the more than 40 they're leaving, here there's no link showing that the majority of them actually are leaving because of Trump. So hopefully the rest of this article will actually show us that, because they've made an assertion, but I don't see the evidence of it. CNN sat down with 3 outgoing Republicans. So out of more than 40, our sample size is 3. That's a little skewed. All of whom left for different reasons. Well, I would expect at least one, maybe 2 of them to be because of Trump, because half or more, the majority of them, are leaving because of Trump. We've already got a couple up here. We've got reasons for resigning for scandal, retiring, running for higher office. Let's take a look. The first is Ryan Costello, the reluctant retirement. Well, that's an interesting headline. He wants to stay, but he's maybe being forced out. He's still new to Congress, elected in 2014. A rare brand, a young moderate willing to break with his leadership and his president on everything. Well, there's a problem right there. I mean, if yes, it is rare to have people in a party who are not voting with the party on many things, everything from gun control to repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act. I found that interesting. Again, there's no link to any of this, but I found especially the Affordable Care Act one kind of interesting. So I did my own research, which CNN can't be bothered to do. And on his congressional page, January 6, 2016, that's back when Obama was president, he voted for the Restoring Americans Healthcare Freedom Reconciliation Act. That was a reconciliation bill trying to not completely repeal Obamacare, but really gut it and destroy the bill. And of course, it went to the president, who vetoed it. And looking on this webpage, it talks, this is healthreformvotes.org, so it's a pro-Obamacare type website. They show it here too, January 6th. They gave him a thumbs down because they supported Obamacare. But, yep, he voted for reconciliation to gut Obamacare. And then after Obama vetoed it, he voted to override the president's veto to gut Obamacare. 2017, January, before Obama left office, before Trump took office, he again was trying to begin the process of repealing Obamacare. But suddenly, in May of 2017, when Trump is president and actually would pass either a full repeal or a partial repeal of Obamacare, Costello suddenly votes to preserve Obamacare and does not vote to restrict or reduce it. That's strange. I suppose you could say he broke with his leadership on the Affordable Care Act. But he voted with his leadership previously, and then once the bill was going to actually be signed and would have been approved by the president, he voted against it. So I don't know if it's so much breaking with leadership or going back on his word, changing his vote and deceiving his constituents, who he told he would be against Obamacare and would vote to restrict it or overturn it, did so when it has no chance of passing, and then suddenly when it would pass, goes back on his word, deceives his constituents, and votes in favor of the Affordable Care Act. That would be another way of presenting that. But, just saying a break with leadership on repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act. I mean, he's on both sides of the Affordable Care Act, apparently. He's remained left of many of his colleagues. Well, considering the Republican Party is considered right-wing, being on the left would certainly be a problem. He's reluctantly moving on, fed up with the polarization of not only Washington, but also the country at large. He's fed up with the country. And instead of trying to help change it and being in leadership position, he's giving up. Well, that's probably good that he's not there anymore. I feel increasingly that if you're a member of Congress, they assume that you're no good. They assume that you're not telling the truth. No matter what you do, someone's out there locked and loaded to say something disparaging, false, mean, in an attempt to have other people not like you. It's pretty rich for someone to complain that the voters are saying that they assume that you, as a politician, you're not good. They assume you're not telling the truth. Coming from a man who has voted on both sides of the Affordable Care Act, who as a Republican voted to repeal it when it wasn't going to be passed, and then voted to keep it when it would have been passed. It takes a lot of balls to say something like that with a straight face. Costello, unlike some of his older colleagues, Oh, said the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court's redrawing of his district, so it became more Democrat leaning, was also a major factor. See, this is probably the real reason. He's going to have to run in a much more difficult election now that it's been redrawn, and he doesn't want to put in the time, effort, and money to run a race when he's probably going to lose because his district has changed significantly. And because his constituents are correct, and as a politician he's a lying crap weasel, he's going to say something that's not the truth. He's going to say, "Oh no, I'm leaving for, high principled matters and for good reasons. That gosh darn it, I want to do good things, but Washington is just corrupt and nasty, and I don't want to be part of that world anymore." No, no, you do want to be part of that world. It's just that you're going to lose the election, so why bother with all the effort of running? I'm 41. I have an 8-month-old, a 4-year-old. I lost half my district. The state Supreme Court decided they were going to try and take me out. Well, apparently they did, because you're not even going to participate anymore. You're just giving up. Another factor? No, that's not another factor. Up here, the fact that I'm not going to get reelected if I run, so why bother, is the factor. Jeff Flake, Trump's foil, stepping aside. There are few Republicans in Washington who have been more uncompromisingly outspoken about Trump and his shortcomings than Arizona's Senator Jeff Flake. That is true. And most of the Republicans who have been uncompromisingly outspoken about Trump have been destroyed by Trump, which is why he won the primary, one of the most stacked primaries in the Republican presidential campaign history. Well, I think we already see how it's working out for Flake. He's retiring from the Senate as well, so he succeeded about as well as all of Trump's other challengers. From the earliest days of the presidential campaign, in which Trump suggested Mexican immigrants were rapists, this I can't let that one go. This lie is repeated all the time. Although it's nice that it didn't say directly Trump said Mexican immigrants were rapists. It just says Trump suggested. So it's a little more mild of a lie. It's not the strident lie they normally tell. But let's actually go look at the quote, just to correct the record here. The quote is, "When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us," which is a speako, a typo. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. Let's take this little bit here and rephrase it a bit. Instead of talking about people coming from Mexico, let's just say people in prison. People in prison are not good people. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people. Now, if I said that sentence, would that mean every person in prison is a rapist? No. No. Some are bringing drugs. Some are bringing crime. Well, I guess they're convicted criminals in prison. They're probably all bringing crime. They're not all rapists, but some of them in there are rapists. When Trump said this, he was not saying this. A proper reading of this sentence is not saying every person that comes from Mexico is a rapist. He's listing things that are coming with those people. Some are bringing drugs, some are bringing crime, some are rapists, and some are good people. That's it. That's it. Every time the media says that Trump said Mexican immigrants are rapists, you can point and laugh and say you're lying, because they are. Anyway, back to the original story. Trump did make this second quote about McCain not deserving distinction of a war hero, although he didn't say necessarily he didn't deserve distinction. He said he liked his heroes not to have been captured, making it that being captured war hero was a lesser level. It seems strange that they're considered heroes. But I'll give them some credit on that one. That is an accurate statement. Flake has been crystal clear that he thinks Trump's bombastic style is hurting the country and endangering America's reputation abroad. Well, no matter who the Republican president is, liberals, which includes Flake, are going to say that, oh, America's reputation abroad is going to suffer. Because they say that with every Republican president. They also say every Republican president's racist, sexist, homophobic, misogynistic, transphobic, whatever. So why bother? If that's your concern, you need to reevaluate your priorities. It's Trump and what he represents about the far right and nativist underpinnings of Flake's beloved Republican Party right now that drove the 55-year-old senator to decide that now, right now, and now, was as good a time as any to retire from Congress. Now, it's interesting because Trump is not, again, despite what the media says, Trump does not have a history of being a far right-winger. He doesn't have a lot of political background. He's supported Democrats in the past. He's supported Republicans in the past. He hasn't been a major political figure in the past. And in fact, at times they're talking about him running as a Democrat, historically in the past. Nativist underpinnings. Well, again, nativist is, the left likes to talk about dog whistles. This is a dog whistle by the media trying to say racist. But really all it's saying is Trump puts America first, as you would hope a president would do. That's what the Republican Party is supposed to stand for, the right, and the citizens of the nation first. That's a conservative party. The Republican Party is a conservative party. And Flake does not believe in the principles of the Republican Party and conservative values. He's complaining here, quote, our debt has increased massively. That's not Trump's fault. Trump has not been president long enough to massively increase the debt. That's been the Republican Party for many decades. It has complained about fiscal irresponsibility, has promised to rein in the debt, and then has failed to do so, has chosen not to do so, and despite making promises to its constituents, has lied to them and not actually executed. We're no longer the party of free trade. False. The Republican Party, despite, again, its rhetoric, has never been the party of free trade. It tries to have more trade, but every bill that has been passed, whether it's NAFTA, the attempt at TPP, it's not making free trade where people can trade whatever they want. There are still regulations or restrictions. And Trump, despite, again, the lie is saying that he's against free trade. He has not said he's against free trade. He says he wants fair trade because the trade we have now is not free. There are restrictions, and the U.S. is getting screwed because other countries have put more restrictions on our trade than we have put on them. That's it. If it was absolute free trade and we can do anything, I think Trump would be supportive of that. But that's not the case. There are winners and losers. And in the past, Trump has said, and I think he's more accurate than not, we've been on the losing end of those negotiations. And people like Flake have supported it. We've become a party of anger and resentment. Well, yes, that's because people like Flake and McCain, his buddy, which it mentions up here, have promised Republican voters that they would fight for what they want, like immigration, border control, fiscal responsibility. They promise it, and then when it comes down to actually passing bills that will be enacted, somehow they always fail to do it and come up with some excuse. They don't actually want to pass the bills that they promise that they will fight for. So that's why the party is angry, and that's why an outsider like Donald Trump could come in and destroy a field of, 15, 16 established Republican politicians, because the people were angry and resentful that those and untrustworthy, did not believe those politicians were telling the truth. It's not the optimistic vision that I cut my teeth on as a Republican listening to Ronald Reagan or George H.W. Bush. Yes, George H.W. Bush is a perfect example. That's probably someone who Flake looked up to quite a bit. Someone who promised no new taxes, who promised to be a fiscally responsible Republican, and then passed tax and spending laws just like a Democrat. And that would be why the Republicans are angry and resentful. After a single term in the Senate, Flake will leave, end of the year, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. He's going to go on a trip and a vacation because he has such a hard life. As he heads for the exit, he leaves some unfinished business. Flake, who has been among the Republicans who worked relentlessly on immigration restructuring and enshrining DACA into law, said he's frustrated he hasn't been able to see the legislation through. Well, yeah, he would be angry about that. He's frustrated because he's worked relentlessly on passing laws that the base of his party doesn't want. Again, only one politician was, well, not even a politician, only one person in the Republican primary was very clear about fighting against increased immigration and legalization of illegal immigrants that are here in the country. That was Donald Trump. Every other Republican politician, to one degree or another, was supportive of assisting immigrants that are in this country. And Donald Trump won because the Republican base doesn't want this crap. The leadership of the Republican Party does. And yes, he's frustrated that he can't pass bills against the will of his constituents. He also lamented he's leaving at a time when the Senate isn't doing as much legislatively as he wishes it was, in part because of arcane rules and because leadership on both sides of the aisle have shielded members from difficult votes. Yes, that's why voters on both parties are sick and tired of the Senate and don't like politicians very much, and don't trust them and think they're lying crap weasels like you mentioned up here, because they do talk a lot and get nothing done. And finally, there's stuff in here too about rumors. Privately, Republicans are telling me they don't like Trump, telling me that they're worried that Trump's going to fire Special Counsel Mueller, all that crap. Look, he took on Trump, he lost, he's bitter, and he's gossiping. Okay, so that's the real reason. So we've got the first person's leaving because his district has been redrawn. He's going to lose if he runs anyway. We've got one guy who took on the president, does not represent his constituents, and is tired and is leaving. And the third person, Ileana Ros-Latinen, the first Latina in Congress. That's great. It's always important to make sure we track what boxes and who's first and what. I'll just summarize the reason she's leaving. It doesn't say why she's leaving at all. It says that she's engaged, she has enthusiasm for a job she's held for 3 decades. She's not leaving because of Trump. She's loved it all. A glimpse of how Congress has changed and how many more women and minorities are there. It's great. But there's more work to be done, of course. She's hoping to split her time between Washington and Miami. Congress has always been a tough place. She's leaving with few regrets. There's a couple things she wished she could have done in her career. And that's it. So, CNN, when your headline is called Why Republicans Are Calling It Quits, you give 3 examples. And one of them, you don't say why she's calling it quits. You just say she's leaving and she's enjoyed her time there. That's a 66%. That's a 66% pass rate on your article. You have failed. Well, no, that's not quite true. Doing a quick Google thing here to check. Again, something that CNN doesn't bother with. It looks like 66% is a D. It's not quite a fail. And in fact, it's 66.6%. So we could round it up to a D plus possibly. I don't know if we want to do that or not though with CNN. Either way, not failing. I apologize, CNN. I will correct my statement. A D for CNN on this article. I will do the extra work they have not done, and let's see if we can find out really why she's leaving Congress. Well, here's the Miami Herald talking about it. Final year in Congress takes on Trump, immigration, and climate change. Okay, so another very moderate Republican who's taking on Trump and the issues that the base likes. That would be very frustrating. It does say here, though, let's see. It says she's not leaving because she's scared that her overwhelmingly Democratic-leaning district will turn against her, or because she's fed up with the hyper-partisan rhetoric of the Trump era. So she's not making up the same reasons as the other guy from Pennsylvania. It's just been 28 years, and she and husband Dexter are ready for something different. You know what? As difficult as it is to believe at times, because it seems like most politicians just want to stay in office until they die, or they can't win anymore. This apparently is her statement, and it's legitimate. After 28 years, I don't know how old she is. It says 65. Maybe she just wants to retire and enjoy the rest of her life and not deal with this crap. Why couldn't CNN say that? Why couldn't CNN say what she says up here, that it's not because of these reasons, and it's just that she's done? It's even got evidence in here. It says she won her last election by 10%. That was her closest challenge in years. Her closest challenge, she won by 10%, even though her district went for Hillary Clinton by more than 19 points. So she has a very Democratic district, but she's still winning handily, which explains why she's a moderate Republican. And I assume, based off that information, she could win again. If she could win, based off of her historical strong wins, and it doesn't say her district was redistricted, it changed, it's the same people, it seems quite likely she does just want to retire. So why didn't CNN say that? Probably because CNN's garbage and is lazy and didn't put in any effort. So, D for CNN. Good job. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for listening.